On a quiet day in a secluded part of the Earth, a strange glowing ship landed without warning. It was unlike anything the humans had ever seen before. The ship was sleek, with sharp flowing lines that seemed to bend and shimmer in the sunlight. As the doors opened, the small team of human scientists and soldiers stood in awe, not knowing what to expect. This was no ordinary event. It was the arrival of an alien princess, and she was about to bring a new life into the world. The princess, named Zorvia, had traveled across the stars in her ship, seeking safety and help from the humans. She was from a far-off planet, a place where alien empires battled for power, but the reason for her visit was more urgent than anyone could imagine. Princess Zorvia was pregnant, and her delivery was near. Her people's safety depended on her child being born without interference. She had no one else to trust, so she had come to Earth. Beside her was a small alien, no taller than a human child, though his presence carried an aura of authority. His name was Orcs, and despite his size, he was far from ordinary. He was a warrior, a protector, and a key figure in this journey. Orcs stood quietly by Zorvia's side, his large, round eyes scanning the surroundings with a mix of curiosity and alertness. He seemed far too wise for his small frame. Zorvia's ship had been carefully guided to Earth by her people's advanced technology. But the situation was delicate. Many factions from her home planet sought to control the power of her child, and they would stop at nothing to get to her. This wasn't just a birth. It was a pivotal moment that could change the future of the galaxy. The humans who had been chosen to assist her were scientists and soldiers trained for every situation, but this was nothing they had ever imagined. No one had ever encountered such a delicate and high-stakes situation. As the group gathered around, they began to prepare for Zorvia's arrival. They had no idea just how much they would need to rely on the small alien standing beside her. Zorvia stepped out of the ship, and her presence was commanding. She was tall, her features sharp and regal, with flowing silver hair that seemed to shimmer with light. She walked with grace, but also a quiet, hidden strength. The human soldiers, led by Commander Elena Carter, stood at attention, unsure of what to do next. They had been briefed about the alien princess's situation, but nothing could truly prepare them for the moment when she arrived. "Welcome, Princess Zorvia," Elena said, stepping forward with a respectful bow. She had been trained for diplomacy, but had never expected to be face-to-face with an alien royal. "We are here to assist you in any way possible." Zorvia nodded, her eyes softening for a moment, but there was no mistaking the urgency in her voice. "Thank you, but time is of the essence. My child will be born soon, and I need a safe place to deliver." Orcs, who had been standing silently beside Zorvia, turned his gaze toward Elena. His tiny frame seemed almost fragile, but there was an intensity in his eyes. Elena felt an instinctive shiver run down her spine as he stared at her, like a vast ocean held within his gaze. He didn't speak, but his presence was overwhelming. "We've prepared the safest location we can," Elena said, trying to calm the princess. "We've set up an isolated medical facility here, far from any prying eyes," but Zorvia's expression remained serious. "It's not the humans I worry about. It's the others. It's the ones who want to take my child before it's even born." Orcs finally spoke, his voice surprisingly deep and full of authority. "The princess speaks the truth. There are those who will not allow this birth to happen. They fear the power this child will bring. It must be kept hidden, protected." The humans listened closely, realizing that what they had assumed would be a peaceful diplomatic mission was far more complex than they had imagined. The birth of this child could have massive consequences, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. Zorvia took a deep breath, her expression softening for a moment as she looked at the small alien standing beside her. "Orcs is right. There are enemies that you don't understand. This is why I came to you. You're neutral. You don't have any stake in our war. I trust you to protect my child." The group exchanged nervous glances. Trusting the aliens, especially one so small and enigmatic as Orcs, seemed difficult. Yet, there was something about the princess's words that felt true. Elena could sense it. The princess wasn't just another royal figure. She was a mother, desperate to protect her unborn child from forces she couldn't control. "We will protect you," Alina said firmly. "But we need your help. The more we know, the better we can protect you." Zorvia nodded, and with Orcs at her side, they followed the humans to the prepared facility. The air was tense, and the silence between them all spoke volumes. They were all aware that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. The birth of this child was no ordinary event. It was a pivotal moment in a galactic war. Its effects would ripple far beyond Earth. As they entered the facility, Orcs looked up at Zorvia, his small hands clenching into fists. He was ready. To protect her, his people had prepared him for this. And now, it was his duty to ensure that the princess's child would be born safely, no matter the cost. Zorvia, exhausted but determined, looked at the humans who were now her only allies. She knew this was just the beginning. The true battle had yet to come. The days passed quietly after Princess Zorvia's arrival. The humans worked tirelessly to create a safe environment for her and her unborn child. The small team of soldiers and scientists had been trained for almost anything, but this was different. Zorvia wasn't just any alien, she was royalty. And her child had the potential to change the galaxy. Orcs, the small alien standing by her side, had become a valuable ally. Though his size was tiny compared to the humans, his knowledge and wisdom were immense. He was like a watchful guardian, quietly observing the humans around him. While the others worked to set up the medical equipment and ensure the facility's security, Orcs kept to himself, his large round eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. Commander Alina Carter had been in charge of the mission since the beginning. She had dealt with hostile species and complicated political situations, but nothing had prepared her for the responsibility of protecting a royal alien and her child. There was a tension in the air that no one could ignore, and Alina found herself waking in the middle of the night, feeling like something terrible was about to happen. The facility, nestled deep in a hidden forest, was far from the nearest city. The location had been chosen to ensure that no one would stumble upon them. But despite the isolation, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She would often catch Orcs staring into the distance, as if sensing something. Beyond the facility's walls, she would ask him if anything was wrong, but he would simply say, "Nothing yet, but soon." It was clear that he was aware of something the humans couldn't understand. One evening, as the team gathered for their nightly briefing, a strange signal appeared on the facility's communication system. At first, it seemed like background noise, but Alina and the others quickly realized it was a message. A warning. Alina said Dr. Robert Jenkins, the head scientist, as he looked at the flashing screen. "This message, it's from an unknown source. I can't track it." Alina's heart skipped a beat. "What does it say?" The screen flickered for a moment before the message appeared in plain text. "The princess must not give birth. We are coming." The message was brief, but the threat was clear. Alina knew immediately that they weren't the only ones who knew about the princess and her baby. She had heard rumors of a powerful alien faction that opposed the birth, but hearing it firsthand sent a wave of fear through her. The princess's enemies were coming, and they weren't going to stop until they got what they wanted. Orcs, Alina said, turning to the small alien standing nearby. "Do you know who sent this message?" Orcs looked up, his expression unreadable. "Yes, it is them. The Tylock faction. They will stop at nothing to prevent the birth of the princess's child." Alina's brow furrowed. The Tylock. I've heard of them. But why would they care so much about a baby? A child will change everything, Orcs replied quietly. The Tylock fear what this child represents. Power, peace, and control. Over the galaxy, the child's birth is not just a political event. It is a signal to the galaxy that change is coming. The more Orcs spoke, the clearer it became. This was not just a royal birth. It was a symbol, one that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. Alina's thoughts raced as she tried to process the weight of the situation. If the Tylock or any other faction learned of the child's existence, they would stop at nothing to claim it for their own gain. But Zorvia had no choice. She had come to Earth because she believed in its neutrality. She believed that humans could be trusted to protect her and her child. However, now, Alina understood just how serious the situation had become. If they didn't act quickly, the birth could be interrupted before it even happened. Alina knew that their isolated location might not be enough to protect the princess. They needed to prepare for a full-scale attack. The soldiers began setting up defenses around the perimeter, and the scientists worked on creating a secure room where the princess could deliver her child safely. But the threat was not just physical. It was psychological, too. Alina could sense the fear creeping into the humans around her. Everyone knew that the stakes had risen. As the night wore on, Alina stood outside the facility looking into the darkness of the surrounding forest. Her mind was racing. She had seen plenty of conflict before, but this felt different. The tension was palpable, and it wasn't just about the birth anymore. It was about a war that was brewing, one that could engulf them all. Orcs stood beside her, his small frame hardly noticeable in the dark. "They are coming," he said simply. "When they arrive, we will be ready." Alina nodded, though. Doubt lingered in her chest. "What exactly can we do, Orcs? We're outnumbered and we don't know what kind of forces they have. How do we protect her? ... And the baby. We have to protect the princess at all costs," Orcs said. "The baby must be born, no matter the consequences. If the Tylok fail to stop the birth, they will try to take the child. But if they succeed, the galaxy will fall into darkness." Lena turned to him, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of uncertainty and determination. "And what do you need from us?" "Trust," Orcs said. "Trust in the princess's child. It is the key to everything. Once the baby is born, no one will be able to stop what happens next." The following morning, the tension in the air had become unbearable. The team had fortified the facility as best they could, but Alina couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something they couldn't fully prepare for. She kept thinking about Orcs' words. The baby wasn't just a child. It was the key to peace or the beginning of war. Just then, the sirens blared. The first wave of attackers had arrived. The morning after the warning message, the tension in the air grew unbearable. Soldiers were on high alert, and the scientists worked around the clock to finalize the preparations for Princess Zorvia's delivery. The facility was a temporary refuge, and despite its hidden location deep within the forest, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't enough. The Tylok, the faction that opposed the birth, were drawing closer. Alina sat in the control room, her hands pressed firmly on the console in front of her. Outside, she could see the armed soldiers patrolling the perimeter, their eyes scanning the trees and the distant horizon. But the silence was unsettling. No one could predict exactly when the enemy would strike. Orcs had become a constant presence, moving quietly through the facility, checking the security measures, and offering cryptic advice to the humans. Despite his small stature, there was no mistaking the power that seemed to radiate from him. His confidence was a strange comfort to Alina, but she couldn't help wondering just how much danger they were really in. She had never dealt with an enemy like the Tylok, and Orcs' words made it clear that the stakes were far higher than she had anticipated. Suddenly, the loud, harsh sound of an alarm pierced the silence, making everyone jump. Elena's heart raced as she stood up, her eyes widening with fear. The enemy had arrived. "They're here," Orcs whispered. His voice was calm, but there was a hint of urgency in his tone. Alina turned to him, her mind racing. "How many are there? What are we dealing with?" "A few ships," Orcs replied. "No. But they are dangerous. Their weapons can pierce our defenses. We need to be ready." The human soldiers immediately sprang into action. Alina quickly relayed orders through the communication system, instructing everyone to take their positions. The scientists and support staff were moved to the secure rooms, and the soldiers began to fortify the outer defenses. Lena's mind raced as she watched them work. But deep down, she knew the Tylok wouldn't be easily stopped. Their technology was far more advanced than anything the humans had. The first explosion shattered the quiet morning. The blast came from the edge of the forest, followed by a series of smaller impacts. Alina stumbled back as the walls of the facility trembled. She grabbed her radio and shouted into it, "All units, report, we're under attack." came the voice of one of the soldiers. They've breached the perimeter. They're moving in. Elena's heart pounded. She turned to Oris, her face pale with fear. What do we do now? Oris's expression remained calm as he glanced toward the door. We fight. We protect the princess. But Alina didn't feel ready. She'd been trained for emergencies, but this was nothing like she had imagined. The Tylok were here, and they were more than just a threat. They were an unstoppable force. The soldiers scrambled to respond, returning fire as best they could. But it quickly became clear that the Tylok's weapons were far superior. The enemy ships hovered just outside the facility, sending blasts of energy into the trees and striking the perimeter walls with powerful beams. The soldiers fought back, but they were outmatched. Alina watched helplessly as one of her soldiers fell to the ground, his body hit by a blast from the enemy's weapons. We need to evacuate the princess, Alina shouted. Now. But Oris stopped her, his hand gripping her arm with surprising strength. The princess cannot leave. Baby must be born here, in this place. If we leave, they will follow us. Alina stared at him, her face filled with confusion. But we can't fight them all. They're too powerful. We don't need to fight them, Oris said calmly. We need to survive long enough for the birth to happen. Once the baby is born, we'll have the power to stop them. Alina felt a chill run down her spine. The power to stop them? What kind of power was Oris talking about? The thought of a small newborn baby being the key to saving them all seemed impossible. But she had no choice but to trust him. She had no choice but to trust the plan. We need to hold the line, Oris said. The Tylok will stop at nothing to prevent this birth, but we must not let them succeed. Outside, the situation grew worse. More explosions rocked the facility, and the sound of the Tylok's ships grew louder. It was clear that they had no intention of giving up. The humans fought bravely, but they were running out of time. Inside, Princess Zorvia was struggling to remain calm. She had already been in labor for several hours, and the pain was beginning to intensify. She was in a secure room, surrounded by a few trusted humans and Oris, who remained by her side. Alina rushed into the room, her face grim. How is she? Oris glanced at her, his expression unreadable. She is strong, but she is in pain. We must protect her at all costs. Zorvia looked up at Alina, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. I will not let them stop me.
Ow.
I will give birth to my child no matter what happens. Alina nodded, a new sense of resolve building inside her. She had been afraid, but now she understood. This was not just about protecting the princess. It was about protecting the future. This child was more than just a baby. It was the key to peace, the key to saving them all. They couldn't let the Tylok take that away. We will protect you, Alina said firmly, her voice steady. We will fight to the end. Outside, the Tylok ships continued their attack. The humans were outnumbered, but they weren't giving up. They had a mission, and they would see it through to the end. The birth of the princess's child wasn't just a personal event. It was the turning point in a war that had raged across the stars for centuries. Alina stood by the door, watching as Oris stood watch over Zorvia, his eyes scanning the room and the walls for any sign of danger. He was more than just a protector. He was a reminder that the future of the galaxy depended on them. They had no choice but to hold the line. Do not worry, Oris said quietly, looking at Zorvia. We will make sure the child is born. The sounds of battle echoed outside the walls of the facility. Explosions, laser fire, and the hum of alien technology filled the air. Inside, the humans and aliens fought side by side, but the real battle was happening in a small, secure room, where Princess Zorvia lay on a bed, surrounded by a few trusted humans and the ever-watchful Oris. The tension was thick in the air, and every minute felt like an eternity. Zorvia was in labor. Her body trembled with pain, but her resolve was clear. She was not going to let the Tylok or any enemy stop the birth of her child. This was more than a personal struggle. It was the key to everything. The baby she was about to bring into the world was not just a child. It was the future of the galaxy, a symbol of hope and peace for her people and the humans who had chosen to stand by her side. Oris stood by the door, his eyes scanning every corner of the room. His presence was a mix of calm and readiness. Despite his small size, Orcs exuded strength, and he was determined to protect the princess at all costs. He had known from the moment he arrived on Earth that this birth would change everything. But even he could not predict the full extent of the powers this child would bring. "Alina," Zorvia gasped, her voice strained from the pain. "I'm not sure I can do this." Alina, who had been standing by her side, held the princess's hand gently, offering what comfort she could. "You can do this, Zorvia. You are stronger than you think." Outside, the sounds of the Tylok's attack continued, but they seemed distant now. Inside the room, it was as if the world had faded away, leaving only Zorvia and her unborn child at the center of everything. The humans and Orcs had made their stand, but the real fight was about to begin. Orcs turned to Alina, his eyes serious. "We must be ready. The Tylok will come for her, whether she gives birth here or not. This child must be protected." Alina nodded. "We'll do whatever it takes." Zorvia looked at Orcs with a mixture of fear and trust. "I know you'll protect my child, Orcs. But what happens after the birth? What will the child do?" Orcs remained silent for a moment, his gaze distant. "The child will bring peace, but only if it is raised in safety. If the Tylok succeed in stopping this birth, the galaxy will be plunged into darkness. They cannot have this power. The child must be born now, and it must be kept safe." The tension in the room was palpable. Zorvia's breathing grew heavier, and her eyes squeezed shut as another wave of pain hit her. Orcs stepped closer to her, his small hands resting lightly on her arm. "You are not alone, princess. We are with you." With those words, Zorvia's eyes opened, and for a brief moment, she seemed to relax. Her grip on Alina's hand tightened, and she took a deep breath. She had made it this far. She would not let anything stop her now. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The sounds of battle continued outside, but inside it was quiet. The room was still, except for the soft, rhythmic breathing of the princess. Every now and then, Orcs would check the door, ensuring no one tried to break in. Alina stayed by Zorvia's side, offering words of encouragement, though her own heart was racing with fear and anticipation. Then, just as the tension seemed unbearable, a cry broke the silence. It was faint at first, but it grew louder as it filled the room. Zorvia's face softened, her pain momentarily forgotten as she looked down at her child. The baby was here. Orcs stepped forward, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and reverence. "It's done. The child is born." Alina stepped back, allowing the princess to hold her child. Zorvia cradled the small, delicate creature in her arms, her face a mixture of relief and joy. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the baby, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. "He's beautiful," Zorvia whispered. "He's perfect." Alina smiled softly, her heart full. The child was no longer just a symbol of hope. He was a living, breathing being, full of potential and power. But even as they shared this moment of joy, Alina knew that the battle was far from over. The Tylok would not let this go so easily. The child was more than just a baby. It was a weapon, a force that could change the course of the galaxy. And the Tylok would stop at nothing to take it. "We need to move now," Alina said, her voice low but firm. "The attack is far from over." Orcs nodded, his expression serious. "We must protect the child at all costs," Zorvia still holding. Her baby looked up at Alina and Orcs. "What will happen now? Will my child be safe?" Alina looked at the baby, then back at Zorvia. "We will make sure he is. We've come this far, and we're not giving up now." Outside, the battle raged. On. The Tylok were relentless, and their ships continued to fire on the facility. But inside, a new hope had been born. This child, this new life, was the key to everything. And no matter what came next, the humans and Orcs would protect him. Room was quiet now, save for the soft sounds of the baby's cries. Zorvia looked down at her son, her eyes filled with love and determination. She had brought him into the world to be a symbol of peace, a light in the darkness. And she would not let anyone take that away, as Alina stood by the door, watching. The princess and her child. She realized something. This wasn't just about protecting a royal alien or her unborn child. This was about something much larger. The fate of the galaxy was at stake, and the birth of this child had changed everything. It was no longer just a mission. It was a responsibility, a duty to ensure that peace would be possible. "We will protect you," Lena whispered to the child, though he could not hear her. "We will protect you, no matter the cost." The battle was far from over, but now they had won the first fight. The princess's child was born, and with it, a new hope for the future. The birth of the child was only the beginning. Although Zorvia held her newborn son in her arms, her joy was fleeting. The battle outside had not stopped, and the threat of the Tylock loomed larger than ever. Inside the facility, the atmosphere was filled with a mixture of relief, fear, and the weight of responsibility. The baby was safe for now, but there were still many obstacles ahead. Orcs stood by the window, looking out over the horizon, his sharp eyes scanning the area. He had not spoken much since the birth, but everyone could sense his unease. Despite the calm exterior, something was troubling him. The small alien had been more than just a protector. He had a deeper knowledge that he had yet to share with the humans or the princess. Zorvia, exhausted from the labor and the chaos of the battle, looked up at Orcs. Her eyes were tired, but they held a deep trust. "What are you thinking, Orcs?"
Ice.
Turned slowly, his large, round eyes meeting hers. "There is more to this child than you know, princess." Orvia's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Orcs stepped forward, his small form seeming much more serious now. "The child is not just a symbol of peace. He is the key to the future of the galaxy and to the destruction of the Tylock." Alina, who had been sitting in the corner of the room, watching over the soldiers and the baby, stood up. "What does that mean? Why didn't you tell us before?" Orcs didn't immediately respond. He seemed to hesitate, as if weighing the right time to share the truth. After a long silence, he spoke. "The Tylock have always feared the power of this child, not just because of what he represents, but because of what he can do. The child's birth is the start of a new era. His abilities, his power, are unlike anything the galaxy has seen. This power can change the course of wars, the balance of the galaxy. If the Tylock had succeeded in stopping the birth, they would have won, but they failed." Zorvia looked down at her son, his tiny fingers wrapped around her hand. "What do you mean by power? What can he do?" Orcs looked at the baby, his face showing a rare hint of emotion. "This child has the potential to unite or destroy entire empires. His power is not something that can be controlled easily. It is a gift from the stars, something that cannot be explained by our technology or our knowledge. But it must be protected, or it will be used for the wrong purposes." Elena's mind was racing. "Are you saying the child has the ability to destroy the Tylock? To destroy entire species?" Orcs nodded solemnly. "Yes, but it is not that simple. The child must be raised with care, with guidance, must understand the power he holds. If he does not, it could be used against the very people he was meant to protect." Zorvia's voice trembled slightly. "So what are we supposed to do? Keep him hidden forever? Never allow anyone to know what he is capable of?" Orcs shook his head. "No, he cannot remain hidden forever. But he must grow, learn, and be protected. Until he is ready, the Tylock are not the only threat. There are other factions, other forces that will want to control him, to use him for their own purposes. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and the child must be prepared for what is to come." Zorvia looked at Alina, her expression full of concern. "But how do we prepare him? We can't just hide him away. He's not just my son, he is the future." Alina stepped forward, her resolve growing stronger. "We protect him, keep him, safe until he is old enough to understand. But we also need to train him, to help him learn how to use his power for good. And we need to make sure no one else gets their hands on him." Orcs nodded. "That is the path we must take. The Tylock will come again, and they will try to take the child, but we will fight them off. We must stay one step ahead of them." Zorvia's eyes were filled with determination. "Then we will do whatever it takes to protect him." Just then, the sound of a blast rocked the facility, and the walls shook. The Tylock had come again. Alina rushed to the window, her heart racing. She could see the enemy ships in the sky hovering just outside the facility. The battle was far from over. "Everyone, get ready," Alina said, her voice firm. "We need to protect the princess and the child. We can't let them take him." Orcs turned to Zorvia, his eyes softening. "The time has come to prepare the child. You must understand the power within him, but it must be done carefully. You don't have much time." Zorvia nodded, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "Then we will begin." Now, the soldiers. Outside were preparing for the next wave of attacks, but they were also preparing for something else. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the future. The baby Zorvia held was no longer just an innocent child. He was the future of the galaxy, and his power could either save or destroy everything. Alina turned back to Orcs. "What do we need to do first?" Orcs' expression was serious. "We must train him in secret. We cannot let the Tylock know. What he is capable of? Not yet. But we must teach him to control his power. If he cannot, then all of this, the birth, the battle, the future, will be for nothing." Zorvia looked down at her son, his tiny face filled with innocence. She knew that everything was changing and that her life would never be the same again. But she also knew that she could not let her child grow up without the knowledge of his destiny. He would need to be strong, brave, and wise, because the galaxy depended on him. "Then we begin," Zorvia said softly. "We train him outside." The battle raged on. But inside the facility, a new journey had begun. The child was born, and now it was time for him to understand the legacy he was destined to carry. The sounds of battle continued to echo outside the facility. The Tylock ships hovered above, firing lasers and energy blasts toward the walls. But inside, the situation had shifted. For the first time since the attack began, there was a sense of hope. Zorvia's child had been born, and with it, a new purpose had been set into motion. The baby, still small and fragile, was held tightly in Zorvia's arms. She sat in the quiet room, surrounded by a few trusted humans and Orcs who stood guard at the door. Sharp eyes never left the surroundings, always watching, always alert. Though the fighting continued, the princess had one goal in mind: protecting her child and making sure he was raised safely. Alina stood near the window, watching as the soldiers outside kept a tight defense around the facility. The enemy was relentless, but the humans were fighting back with everything they had. However, there was a new understanding in Alina's heart. This battle wasn't just about protecting a princess. It was about protecting the future of the galaxy. She turned to Orcs, who was still scanning the area. "What now?" she asked. "We've bought some time, but the Tylock won't stop. They'll keep coming until they get what they want." Orcs glanced over at her, his eyes calm but full of resolve. "We have to prepare for what comes next. The Tylock will not back down easily. But this child, your future king, is more powerful than you can imagine. The question is not whether we can win this fight, but how we prepare him for the war to come." Zorvia looked at her baby, her expression softening. "How do we prepare him for something like this?" "He's just a child." Orcs stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "You must teach him, just as I will teach him. His power is unique. It must be controlled, not just for his own safety, but for the safety of everyone in the galaxy. Grows up not understanding his true potential, he could be lost. And the Tylock know this." Zorvia nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I will do whatever it takes." Alina joined them, her hand on her chin as she thought through Orcs' words. "So what are we really dealing with here? This child, he has the ability to change the course of everything. But how do we control something so powerful?" Orcs took a deep breath, looking at the baby in Zorvia's arms. "The key to controlling his power lies in understanding it. His abilities will grow as he does, and they will become stronger over time. But if we don't teach him how to channel that power, it could spiral out of control. His strength must be his own, not the weapon of anyone who wants to use him." Alina looked at Orcs, sensing the weight of his words. "And how do we?" Teach him? We've barely just started. That is why we need help, Aura said, his eyes meeting Elena's with a serious expression. We cannot do this alone. We need allies, not just for defense, but to ensure the child has the guidance he needs. There are others in the galaxy who would help him if we can find them before the Tylok do. Zorvia, still holding her baby close, stood and walked toward the window. Her voice was soft but firm. We have to leave here. We cannot stay on Earth forever. The Tylok will track us down, and even if we are hidden for now, they will find us eventually. Alina turned to face Zorvia. You mean we have to leave Earth? Zorvia nodded.
Yes.
We need to take the child to the right place. There are allies of mine old friends who have the resources and knowledge to protect him. If we stay here, we will be risking everything. But if we go to them, we can raise him in safety and prepare him for the future. Aris added, the Tylok will come for him no matter where we go, but the longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes. We need to act now. The decision was made quickly. They could not risk staying in one place for too long. The Tylok were relentless, and the child's safety depended on them being one step ahead. They would leave the safety of the Earth facility and seek refuge among the galaxy's allies. Those who would help protect and guide the child as he grew into the power he was destined to wield. The humans and the aliens worked together to prepare. For the journey, the facility was abandoned quickly, but not without a final fierce battle. The soldiers fought with all their might to protect the princess and her child, but the Tylok were closing in. A firefight broke out as they reached the transport ship, and the humans and Orcs fought side by side. Orcs, though small, moved with lightning speed, his alien technology and strength overwhelming the Tylok soldiers who dared approach the ship. Alina and Zorvia, along with the baby, boarded the ship, and the door closed behind them with a loud hiss. The ship's engines roared to life as it ascended into the sky, leaving the battle behind. They were now on their way to a new world, one that would serve as the child's sanctuary and training ground. The journey was long, traveled through unknown parts of the galaxy. Orcs guided them through the stars, speaking little but always keeping a watchful eye on the galaxy's movements. Zorvia spent her days with her child, nursing him and teaching him small lessons about the world around him. Alina assisted where she could, learning to navigate the new ship and gather information on the Tylok's movements. Weeks passed. Their destination grew closer. Along the way, Zorvia and Orcs began to share more about the child's true potential. It wasn't just his strength that made him special, it was his ability to unite entire civilizations. To bring peace where there had been war. The Tylok had feared this, and now the rest of the galaxy would soon know what Zorvia's child could do. Finally, the ship entered a distant star system, and the planet they were looking for appeared on the horizon. A green and blue world filled with vast forests, oceans, and high-tech cities. It was the perfect place for the child to grow and learn. The allies Zorvia had mentioned were waiting for them, ready to offer their support and protection. As the ship landed, Orcs turned to Zorvia. We have arrived. This is where your son will learn to wield his power. Zorvia looked out at the new world before her. This is where his future begins. Alina, standing at the back of the ship, watched as the baby in Zorvia's arms slept peacefully. The journey ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope. The future was uncertain, but they had taken the first step. The alliance had begun.